everyone. It's really such an honor and a thrill to be here today. It's just been so incredibly energizing to see so many people in person, even though we've been seeing our faces over Zoom and working so closely together over the past few years. Just knowing that we can see each other in person again, it's really quite special. And to know not only that, but that we're joined by thousands of people joining us together on this conference virtually as well. So I don't know about you, but the past few years have sort of felt like a bit of a blur. But taking it back 4 years ago, in 2018, we stood on a different Code for America Summit stage and announced our Integrated Benefits Initiative. In the Integrated Benefits Initiative, we partnered with 5 states to learn what an ideal benefits journey could look like for food assistance, healthcare, or other human services, and then to try small pilots that address specific pain points in the benefits journey. While those were small pilots, we were really excited to see that many of those states are still applying those lessons that they've learned and taking them even farther on their own today. And back then, the goal was really just to provide state and federal agencies with new blueprints of how they could shift benefit programs to better serve residents. So let's fast forward to today in 2022. And our work, our collective work, everyone in here, collaborating with government agencies and communities in response to unprecedented needs, challenges, and opportunities to improve benefits delivery at scale, not even because we wanted to scale, but because we had to. And so this work has evolved far past small pilots and blueprints, and this work is certainly bigger than any of us alone. So first, I just want to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to every single one of you who have really stepped up and stepped in over the past few years, whether that's as a government leader who stretched yourself beyond capacity you didn't even know you had, whether you are a frontline caseworker trying to help your communities in a time of need, or whether it was you connecting with your neighbors, being part of mutual aid society, or just helping out people on your block. At Code for America, 2021 was a very busy year for our safety net team. We helped over 2.8 million people with access food benefits by assisting over 1.5 million SNAP applications with our Get CalFresh service in the state of California in 1 year alone. We also helped the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to adapt digital delivery of public benefits in a time of rapid change so they could better meet their residents' needs with a capacity building approach. And we partnered with the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities to introduce a national safety net scorecard framework so we could evaluate benefit delivery and have metrics that measure progress from the status quo to the human-centered safety net we all want and deserve. And so today, we're excited here to talk about a major milestone that we reached with MN Benefits, a multi-year effort with the state of Minnesota to transform the experience of securing multiple critical safety net benefits. And MN Benefits now pays dividends to more than 1,000 Minnesotans every day. We're also going to talk a little bit about where we go from here, above and beyond celebrating the milestone today. So joining me to tell this Minnesota story is Jeff Hendrix, the Enterprise Business Transformation Manager with the Minnesota Department of Human Services, and Shalaka Gole, the Code for America Senior Product Manager for MN Benefits. So to get started, Jeff, could you tell us all a little bit more about what MN Benefits is?
Yeah, Tracy, I'd be happy to. And I think the first thing we need to do, though, before we really start to tell the story of MN Benefits is to understand where the state of Minnesota has been in our overall technology journey. Like many of our peer states across the country, Minnesota is in a position where many of our once modern and new technology systems have started to age. Our legacy systems are starting to show some of the wear and tear. So we've been working in the state of Minnesota to modernize for many years now. Part of that journey involves the early conversations and feedbacks with our partners in both the counties and the tribal nations, in which they impressed upon us the importance of making sure our technology solutions of the future were both person-centered and integrated. And that's something that our agency, the Department of Human Services, codified in 2018 with the formation of the Integrated Services Business Model. So fast forward to 2 years later, and we were approached by Code for America with a really ambitious plan of taking what had become a fractured application environment for the people we serve and unify that into one cohesive experience for the people of Minnesota. And from there, really, the vision of what MN Benefits was to become was born. You know, we took first steps towards imagining what an integrated benefits delivery system would look like, and we decided to apply for, create an application for multiple programs that the people of our state would be able to comfortably and efficiently use. And then, of course, 1 month later, COVID-19 hit. And it forced from us a really quick pivot away from what was our original vision into the creation of what became an award-winning pandemic EBT application that provided us with the precursor and proof of concept that we needed to know that we were onto something with MN Benefits. So upon completion of that PEBT application, we were able to pivot right back to that original goal of integrating 9 programs that will serve the people of Minnesota into one single application. And I'm happy to say today that we've been able to effectively streamline and provide an application for our people that previously took over 60 minutes for them to complete, but as of today is less than 13.
Amazing.
A couple of other things to highlight about MN Benefits. It is completely mobile friendly, it's screen readable, it's available in Spanish and easily able to be translated into other languages. It is all written in entirely plain language, and someone can upload a verification with a picture from their phone and get it directly to the county that they are working with. And so all of these things are trying to make it as easy as possible to complete that first step in this process. And I think some of the results that we really want to celebrate, so as Tracey was saying, every week about 5,000 Minnesotans are using this application to apply for benefits. And to date, since MN Benefits has been live, we've served about 150,000 applications. So that's about 340,000 people in the state of Minnesota that have received $80 million in benefits. And so that's really what we're driving towards. We're talking about this application, but that's the outcome that we're really excited to celebrate.
Definitely. So, we're celebrating this milestone today. It's always great to talk about all the impact. But, let's be honest. I think the process of building towards this sort of impact has not been straightforward. We were committed not just to building a product and a good product, but really building it together. And so, Jeff, I was wondering if we could start with you and if you could talk a little bit about what building together looked like.
Sure, absolutely. And for Minnesota, the ability to build together is something that's critical to us. Minnesota is a state with 87 counties, each of which is able to independently administer programs to the people of their county, as well as 11 sovereign tribal nations. So for us, working together really isn't optional. And we saw with this transition with MN Benefits an opportunity to really shift our paradigm towards the implementation of technology and delivery of services for the people of our state. It was important to us when we started this that it was not be something that was built for us and given to us, but rather something that we were able to build the internal capacity and really be along for every step of that journey, so that when our relationship with Code for America ends, we're able to take on full ownership of this and actually be able to implement the continued improvements within it. Very early in this process, the leadership at the Department of Human Services, in particular Deputy Commissioner Chuck Johnson, Business Transformation Officer Jeff Jorgensen, as well as CBTO Greg Paling at our technology partners in Minnesota IT Services, really committed to building what would become the first product team for our agency and model that after something that we had seen proof of concept as being successful. What that's meant for us is, from very early in this engagement, we paired Minnesota engineers with our partners at Code for America so that they were actively engaged in the development of the application. It's also meant for us hiring roles that honestly are very different than any that we as an agency have hired before. Things like product managers and dedicated design and research staff. I think one last call out that I probably want to make here is, I heard yesterday from a lot of great speakers and in a lot of great presentations about the challenges that come with hiring people for these roles. And that's something that certainly we feel in the government sector. And it's something that I personally have kind of gone through the pains of trying to do as well. But what has really encouraged me through this is what we have found is that the capacity exists within our government agencies to pivot and do this work effectively. We have the skills. We need some training for sure, but we have the skills and the abilities to be effective in an agile, iterative product delivery. It's something that, I don't know, maybe selfishly, I'd like to say I'm a good example of where that happens.
What he's not mentioning is that Jeff is actually our interim product manager as we transition from CFA to Minnesota, and quite an excellent one at that.
So it sounds like, we both had to move out of our comfort zones a bit. Minnesota really had to think about shifting processes and mindsets of how we work. And Code for America actually needed to shift how we build technology. I'm wondering, a lot of times when we talk about shifting systems, iterating, all of these words can sound a bit abstract. And so Shalaka, I was wondering if you could give us some concrete examples or a story of what that looked like in action.
Yes. Well, first of all, we had to learn how to use Microsoft Teams. But I think everyone in this room is kind of familiar with the idea that CFA has built with the applicant in mind. That's sort of, the CFA tradition. But the big difference in this project was that we were working in lockstep with government every step of the way. And so that looked like a bunch of different things. I think from the very beginning, we had to choose like a programming language that we knew that the state of Minnesota was going to be able to use. And so we hired a full new team at CFA of excellent engineers that were able to program in Java. We moved on to the Minnesota backend as quickly as we possibly could, as quickly as things happen in partnership with government. And from the very beginning, we had to make sure that whatever we were building was going to work for public servants, for workers. And that meant that our research and design team was sitting next to workers in the development of this to make sure whatever we were going to output was going to work for them so that it could work for applicants at the end of the day. And then the biggest thing, one more thing about workers is that to this day, our program team runs a bi-weekly work group where we talk to workers in all of the 87 different counties and 3 tribal servicing agencies, and we're getting feedback from them even now to make sure what we're putting out, is that still working? Is it not? If not, how can we change it? And the last thing is just working in lockstep with our counterparts at DHS. So Jeff and I are constantly on the phone, and every other team member at CFA has a counterpart that they're working with, coaching, working through problems on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. I think that's been the biggest lesson, and I think the biggest gift of this whole process as well.
Great. And it also seems like we are constantly learning and relearning how to work across government agencies, and in particular, as you said too, with a whole ecosystem of local service providers and direct service partners. And I was wondering, Jeff, what this whole process has really taught you about making government services more human-centered.
Yeah, Tracey. So this process has been both affirming and has also provided some of the accelerant of the directions that we had already kind of started to move to, although admittedly at a slower pace than we had hoped. I think intuitively we knew that part of what it means to be human-centered means you have to actually talk with human beings. And part of what we've learned in this engagement is that looks different than maybe the way that we had previously done it. Talking with people doesn't just mean talking with them at a point in time once to get some initial feedback. It means really investing in those relationships and bringing them along through the entire journey through the process of development. From applicants to caseworkers, from community navigators to policy representatives, the people MN benefits impacts are viewed not as stakeholders that it is necessary for us to inform, but rather as partners in the co-development of creating the application. Now, Tracey, you're right. There have been challenges along the way. But the really encouraging thing for us and why we feel so confidently about transitioning to this model is because we've seen the resilience of the people and the workers in our state. Over the last 2 years, we've learned iteration, and we've learned how to do these really rapid cycle release schedules. We've started this journey from project implementation to transformative products being in place. And we've found creative ways to interact with each other and with the people we serve in the absence of those in-person opportunities that we had so closely relied upon in the past. So I'm excited for what the future of MN Benefits looks like and what it means for the people that we serve. After our partnership with Code for America ends in June, the independently running, fully functional state of Minnesota product team will be adding the 10th program to MN Benefits. We're also looking right now to what that next MN Benefits-like product is that we can launch and start. And our agency and partners in the state really look forward to the opportunities of the future for potential engagements with our partners at Code for America again. But maybe, Tracey, before I hand it over to you, I think there's probably one last recognition that I need to make, and that's to the courage that it took from the Department of Human Services programs and business areas who committed very early in this process to doing something that was scary and different and counter to every cultural norm that we had established at our agency over the last 20 years. I also want to highlight just the trust and the grace, and this is really important for us in the state of Minnesota, that our partners in the counties and tribal nations gave to us as an organization, but also in a lot of places to me personally. There's many people that we could name, and there's probably too many to kind of list here, but I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the success of MN Benefits that we've seen doesn't occur without the contributions of all those people who are willing to make that change.
I'd love to share 2 stories of ways that has expressed itself, and ways that we can learn together as we're in partnership. So I think the first thing, Jeff was talking about iteration, and I think that was a really difficult thing for us to learn together, because inherent in iteration is that the first thing that you put out into the world is small, and so not as good as you want it to be. And that can be a really tough pill to swallow. And the way that we worked through that was that we worked together through it. So I think of a time when we were adding childcare as a program to the application, and it was an entirely different application that we were filling out. In many counties, it's different workers. It's a totally different system. And the first version that we put out, the feedback that we immediately got was that this isn't enough to process eligibility. And folks were stressed about it, and it makes sense. But what we were able to do is that we sat with them, we listened, and we figured out, okay, what are the things that we need to do to make this a little bit better? And I think the cool thing was then we were able to roll that release out, that fix, within weeks. And I think that really changed the mindset of folks that were a little hesitant about the idea of, moving quickly, because you can't really break things in government, but you can improve things. And so I think, working in partnership with the folks that work in childcare, I think they went from being questioning to some of the biggest champions of, this model of working, which was really, really cool to see. The other thing I think about, making this real is trying to prioritize for folks that have been historically excluded. And so right now, the team is working really hard to try to stand up a pilot for a healthcare application for folks that are differently abled or are older adults. And this is a group of Minnesotans that historically has not had any digital pathway to apply for healthcare. And so the team is working really hard to see if we can make that happen. And last year, we spent a bunch of time trying to figure out how can we make the application a little bit easier to finish for someone who might be experiencing houselessness. So they're not getting stuck in the address flow, so that they can complete an application and, be seen by the agency. We also spent some time trying to support Tribal TANF, which is a program that is for members of tribal nations in the state of Minnesota. And we did a research trip trying to make sure that the way that the language in the application was respectful, because there is a lot of valid, understandable distrust of working with government in many communities, and especially historically excluded ones. And we were trying to get feedback on, is the language right? Does this make sense? But we weren't constraining the feedback that we were getting to just, okay, someone was saying yesterday, don't just think that this person has just this expertise. And so we were getting feedback on other parts of the application, like the race and ethnicity question we know is a really complicated one. And it's, it's like a weird balance where federally you're required to report it, but we know that it can be a huge barrier for folks that are applying to answer that question. And so we got feedback on that question as well. And I think in the process, we learned how challenging it is to design for historically excluded people, because we're working in systems that were often created to exclude, and we're trying to step by step fight back. And I also think it reminded us, and this conference has reminded me of how much room we have to grow. Yesterday, I was in the session about design justice and thinking about how we can more make space, not just when we're floating in to do research, but also have people with lived expertise, a term that I think Equitable Access, the organization that put the session on yesterday, is talking about, how we can have people with lived expertise come in at every point of the decision-making process. So there's a lot of room for us to grow as an organization in our practice, but also in partnership with our state partners. But that's how some of this comes to life.
Thank you. And thank you to both of you, and actually to all of the teammates and partners who are not here on the stage with you, whose work you're representing today. We've come so far in just a few years, and we've learned so much with Minnesota. And we want to share both knowledge and learning with all of you and with more states. And so in case you missed it, last month, Code for America announced that we are launching a Safety Net Innovation Lab, where we can really start to partner with states across the nation to work together, to put these lessons that we've learned, that it takes time, it takes persistence. We can't just build something and hope that it works, but really we need to stick with it and make it work together. And so today, we're really excited to announce that we have both invited Minnesota to apply some of the lessons they've learned from MN benefits applications into renewals. And we're thrilled to announce today that we have our first cohort of states that will be joining us in the Safety Net Innovation Lab. So we are thrilled to announce that California, Colorado, Connecticut, and the state of Louisiana have committed to partnering with the Safety Net Innovation Lab to transform how their safety net services are delivered. And in each state, the lab will be learning from the state leaders and workers who are really on the front line every day, so that we can identify opportunities with their residents, applicants, and community members to improve the delivery of food assistance or integrated benefits and create outcome-focused solutions through an agile and iterative process. And at the end of the partnership, the lab will fully transition these solutions to the state or their partner or vendor of their choice. And in every state, we're going to be building the road forward together. Because ultimately, our goal with the Safety Net Innovation Lab is to reach more than 13 million people with radically better services over the next 6 years. And more importantly, to permanently remove many of the barriers that we currently design around. Barriers to enrollment, usage, and retention that can change by embedding new models into public systems and public policy. So if you're a state agency that delivers health and human service benefits, we're eager to support you. We released a request for information today. It's open to any state and territory and district. Let us know. Think of us as a hand-in-hand partner who can absorb the risk of experimentation and evaluation to try something new and make it work and make it stick. So we look forward to 2023, when we can also stand on this stage to update you on the progress of the states working with the Safety Net Innovation Lab next year. Thank you all.